Hi everyone, my name is Jill Flynn with HeartSpeak, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use Snapheal to edit your photos. I'm going to show you how to remove a leash, how to selectively brighten a certain part of your image, and how to crop your image. I think Snapheal is a very intuitive and easy to use photo editing software program, and I think you'll find it very helpful for editing your adoption photos. Before you get started, check and make sure you have the most current version of Snapheal installed on your computer. And to check, click on Snapheal from the menu, click on Check for Updates, and a pop-up window will appear and it will let you know if you're up to date or not. If not, go ahead and update to the most current version. It only takes a few minutes and it doesn't cost anything, and that will ensure that you have all the latest revisions. To open a photo in Snapheal, you can either load or import an image by clicking here. Just navigate to where that photo is. It could be in a folder on your desktop or it could be on a flash drive. So just locate that photo or file, click on it, and click Open. That's one way. We're going to cancel out because I want to show you the other way, and that is to simply drag and drop the photo that you want to edit right on this area here, and it will open right up. Snapheal makes it very easy. This is a photo of Max I took for a local rescue organization, and before I give the photo to them, there are a couple things that I want to do to it. First of all, I want to remove this leash because it's very distracting and it looks like it's growing out the top of his head. I want to brighten him up a bit. He's a little bit too dark. And then I want to crop it tighter to eliminate some of this extra space at the top and tighten the crop so Max takes up a larger portion of the frame. The first thing I want to do to this image is I want to remove the leash, and it's very easy to do in Snapheal. To remove a leash, you're going to click on the Erase button, and then you're going to come down here and you'll see three different erasing modes: Twister, Shapeshift, and Wormhole. Don't ask me how Snapheal came up with those names, but I like to use Shapeshift for removing leashes. It's good when you want to erase big objects or objects that are well defined like this leash. And then you can select the precision mode, either normal, high, or highest. High is right, in the middle. It does a pretty good job of removing leashes or items, and it doesn't take long. You can go with highest. It has a little bit more detail and it's more fine-tuned, but it will take longer. So I find most of the time high works pretty good. So we're going to try that out for this image. So the next thing you do is you're going to select a brush that's about the same width of this leash. So if we wanted a bigger brush, we'd scroll to the right and you can see how big that is. It's way too big for the leash. We can scroll to the left, make the brush smaller, and it looks like it might be a good size. Let's lay it on top of the leash, and that looks pretty good. So let's click, hold, and drag, and we're going to cover the entire leash. We're going to click on the Erase button, and Snapheal will work its magic. And while it's doing that, it's going to give you a little bit of trivia so you can learn something while you're waiting. As you see, it doesn't take very long. We're almost done. 90%, 100% done. And as you can see, the leash is gone, and Snapheal did a really good job. Okay, the next thing we want to do is I want to brighten up Max. I think he's a little bit too dark. I want to brighten up his face and eyes and make them really sparkle. So to do that, we're going to click on the Retouch button right here at the top right corner. And as you'll see, you'll come up with all sorts of adjustments that you can do, from the saturation to the hue to the exposure. You can change the contrast, shadows, highlights, clarity, sharpen, all sorts of things you can do with the Retouch tool. For this tutorial, we're going to concentrate just on the exposure tool, and that's a really good way to brighten a selective part of the image, which in this case is going to be Max. So if you wanted Max to be a little darker, let's say he was too bright, we would slide the slider to the left, which would darken the image. If we want him to be a little bit brighter, we would slide the slider to the right. And let's start out with something like maybe 31. Let's see how he does. We're going to take our brush tool and we're going to brush over the area of the image that we want to be brighter, as we set just previously there in that slider button. And as you can see, it's brightening up Max really nicely. We can brighten up the inside of his ears. Let's lower that, make that brush a little bit smaller. Brighten up the inside of his ears, and let's see how he looks. Now we have this little eye icon at the top, which is like a before and after. If we click on that, it shows before, Max with the leash and darker, and after, leash is gone and brighter. Except if you'll notice, when we brightened Max, we kind of went outside of the edges, so to speak, and we've got this halo effect going on. And we really don't want to see that because that really shows poor editing skills. So to remove that brightening effect on the outside of Max, what we're going to do is we're going to erase it. And to do that, we're going to click on this icon that looks like a little rubber eraser. We're going to take our brush and we're just going to paint over, and it's going to remove that brightening effect from everywhere we paint. In essence, it's going to erase out that effect. So we're just going to erase out that halo effect, and it probably looks pretty good. Let's do our before and after. Before and after, and that halo effect is all gone. Now let's say we wanted Max's face to be a little bit brighter or maybe a little bit darker. We just went overboard. We can adjust that now because we already have him masked out. So we're going to go back to our exposure tool and we're going to adjust the slider. So if we go further to the right, you're going to see his face is getting even brighter. And if we're going to adjust that slider to the left, his body's going to get darker everywhere. So let's go back and let's brighten it to where we think he looks really good and his face and eyes really pop. And which is about 31, which is where we started with, and I think that looks actually pretty good. So one last look, before and after. Max looks good. We like those changes. Let's hit apply. And now those changes have taken effect. Okay, the last thing I want to do to this image is I want to crop it. I want to crop the space off the top. I think it's very distracting and it pulls the focus away from Max's face. And then I also want to tighten the crop so Max takes up a larger portion of the frame. So it's very easy to crop a photo in Snapheal. We're going to use their cropping tool, which is this icon here, the scissors. Click on that. You'll see a grid will appear on the screen. We're just going to click and drag the corners. You'll get that double-sided arrow. We're going to drag it in. We're going to tighten up this crop. Let's bring it down. Maybe let's make it a little wider. Let's make it a little wider. Let's bring it down. So Max takes up a good portion of the frame. He can easily carry this frame all by himself. And if you'll notice, the grid divides the frame into 3 areas, both vertically and horizontally. And they call that the rule of thirds. And a good rule of thumb for the placement of the eyes is to place the eyes in the upper third of the frame. When you do that, that will give your composition some flow and balance, as opposed to centering the eyes in the frame. I think people tend to do that, but when you do that, it really gives your composition an almost stagnant feel because there's no flow, or it's not a good use of lines. So again, let's crop and let's position the eyes in the rule of third position. You can use these lines as a guide, and you see how that just elongates the vertical lines and just makes a more appealing and balanced composition. So let's do that, and I think that looks pretty good. Let's click on our scissors and say yes to crop, and there you go. Now we still have this area at the top that could be a little bit distracting, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. And we can get rid of that the same way we would get rid of a leash. We're going to go to our erase tool, use a brush, And just like we did with the leash, we're going to brush over or paint over the part we want removed, which is this area here. Let's click on erase and let's see how Snapheal does. And it did an okay job, but as you can see, it's left this little line here when it was trying to interpolate the background. So let's take our brush again, maybe make it a little bit smaller. Let's go over that line. And I see a bit of line at the top. Let's try it again. Let's erase. And there, that looks a lot better. If we want to get really picky, which I tend to do, I see a teeny bit of degradation here and a hint of some lines, so I'm just going to get rid of those. It only takes a few seconds. I'm going to click erase, and boom, there. That looks really nice. The background is filled with that dreamy, blurry green grass, and there's nothing there in the background to distract or pull the focus away from Max. So this looks pretty good. I think it's going to make a nice adoption photo. Let's go ahead and save this file. We're going to click on File, Save. We're going to give it a different name. Let's call it maybe like Max's adoption photo. And we're going to click Save. And now it's saved. I always like to keep my original photo or file intact, and that's why it's a good idea to, when you save your file that you've edited, give it a different name, so if for some reason you ever need to go back or you ever need the original file, you'll have it. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Keep using Snapheal and playing around with it, and the more you use it, the easier it will get. And the things we covered today, the erase tool, the exposure adjustment tool, and the cropping tool are three of the most common tools that are used, and I think you will find them the most helpful. There are a lot more things you can do with Snapheal, and we'll be doing more tutorials in the future. But until then, everyone here from Heartspeak wishes you all happy shooting and happy photo editing.